Great.
Right, here we go. We're recording now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Actually, it should have been all 8 of you shouting at me rather than just Michael. Anyway, one was enough. So we will start off with a bit of grammar. We last time round on the grammar part of it, we reached the bottom of page 5. We'll look
Yes.
at the we will look at the feminine nouns ending in I, which are on page 6. Very, very common class of nouns. They decline rather differently from each other in Sanskrit, but in Pali they've practically merged into one. So you don't have to. It's in other words, whether the noun ends in a short I or a long E, they decline almost the same in Pali. In fact, it's probably right to. I think it's right to say that the only difference between, for example, ratti, which is the paradigm given here, ratti ending in a short E, and nadi ending in a long E, is in the nominative singular. Apart from that, they do decline the same. As for the nouns that ended in a short ah, as like dhamma, but the stem is in short ah, and makes its accusative in you see the same phenomenon occurring in the feminine I nouns, so ratti, nominative, and then ratting, or rattim, or ratting, accusative, and the same for nadi. And if ratti becomes ratting in the accusative, why doesn't nadi become nadim in the accusative? Well, the answer is in Sanskrit it does, but in Pali you can never have a long vowel before the anuswara, before that final M. So it automatically shortens. For example, the genitive plural of dhamma, Sanskrit dharma, the genitive plural is, welcome Chiahui. The genitive plural of dharma is in Sanskrit dharmanam, the anam, whereas in Pali it's dhammanam with a short The accusative of nadi, meaning a river, in Sanskrit nadim, but in Pali it's shortened nadim. For the genitive, dative, instrumental, ablative, and locative, it happens in Pali, but not in Sanskrit. The forms of the noun have just merged into one. So rattiya and nadiya, identical for the nouns in a short E and a long E. In Sanskrit, they remain different. In Pali, they've just merged into one. You might think, well, how jolly good, less to learn. Well, okay, less to learn if you are simply learning a declension by heart. But in practice, it can occasionally create some confusion because the differentiation isn't there. Whereas in Sanskrit it is, in Pali it's lost. Note the alternative locative in ratiyam in the night, nadiyam in the river. So you'll see both forms, nadia and nadiyam.
All right, okay.
And in the plural, you'll see they're identical for the short E and the long E. The either ratio or ratti and nadio or nadi, you'll see both forms equally without any distinction of meaning. For the genitive plural, or genitive and dative plural, you see the final vowel
That's what a
of
dot
the
is.
stem, the E, and then ratinum and nadinum. This is common throughout the generative plural of most different forms of nouns. You get the final vowel of the stem. If long, it remains long. If short, it becomes long. And Sanskrit, for example, of the dharmas, dharmanam, of the Buddhas, buddhanam. If it ends in e, it becomes enam in Sanskrit with a long arm, but enam with a short in Pali. So of the nights is how you get ratinam. So this ending long vowel followed by num is one of the markers of the genitive plural. And equally, a marker of the instrumental and ablative plural
Ehe.
is the
Ehe.
ihi or ibhi. Ihi is much more common. Ibhi is more Sanskritic. Ihi you'll find a lot more commonly in Pali. Now, for the locative plural, if you look back to the previous page, you'll see the locative plural of Dhamma is Dhammesu, and the locative plural of Rupa, Rupesu. And you'll observe here that it's the same characteristic
Me
ending
too.
su, but with the preceding vowel lengthened. So ratisu in the nights, nadisu in the rivers. Note also that in both cases, short e and the long e, rati, nadi, um, the vocative is the same as the nominative for both in the singular and in the plural.
James, oh, sorry about that. What page are we on?
6.
So were any of those sounds intended for me, or was it just a background noise I didn't catch?
It's
You sounded as if you were in an echo chamber, Jay.
I'm not sure what's going on. It's a bit psychedelic.
No, it's even more of an echo chamber now. I'm hearing it resounding around.
He wanted to know the page number.
Oh, the page. Sorry, I didn't catch. We're
Yeah,
on
the sixth.
on page number 6 in the Garen Karunatilaka grammar. Now we are going to look at the verbs. That's section 2 beginning near the bottom of page 6. And again, this is one of the, although you can, those of you who wish, there's no objection to learning the tables in the middle of page 6 by heart, but just learn to recognize them. You probably don't need to learn them by heart at this stage. But the table partway down page 7 is something that really you have to know by heart. So much so it really becomes part of you. What I'm going to do now, I'm just going to activate my iPad. Screen sharing for iPad. Right. Nearly with you. Okay, and I'll screen share in a moment. Yeah, I might as well do it now. Screen share. Share. Button. Yeah. So we have the roots, and hopefully you will all have seen the video I did, or was it two? I can't remember now, on roots and stems. So the root of a verb is the irreducible minimum of it. And the great majority of all words in Pali and Sanskrit are traceable back to a verbal root. Not all of them, but the great majority are traceable back to a verb root rather than a noun root. It's just how the language has developed over the course of the millennia. So we have a root, and then we have a present tense stem. So the examples given here, we've got the root pat. Oops. Okay, can you all see my iPad?
Yes.
Okay, jolly good. So we've got the root pat, meaning to fall. Just a reminder, this tick sign represents the mathematical square root sign. It's an indication that pat is the root. Remember that there is no, if you're reading Pali, you will not anywhere see the word pat on its own. It's just like the atomic element out of which the other forms develop and grow. Now, pat is known as a class 1 verb. There are a total of 10 classes. Don't let that put you off. We'll look at them gradually. And they're actually quite easy to master. Once you've mastered class 1, the others just pretty much the same with slight variations. A class 1 verb always has the in its stem. In its stem. So we have he, she, it falls is patati. And you, singular, fall is, when put in the hyphens, right? Patasi. Patati, patasi. But I fall, it's with an M instead of the T for the third person, he, she, it fall, patati. For the second person singular, that's you, singular, patasi. But patami, remember the always lengthens before the so patati, patasi, but patami. The patami means I fall. You already know the ami ending. We see it in gachami. By far the most common way of forming the present tense is just the root with these endings, patati, vadati, charati. We have the root that's given here in the book, jiv, where we get jivati, he, she, it lives, jivasi, and then jivami. It's not always quite as simple as that, but fear not. Once you've got so we've got one slightly irregular verb here. We've got this gum, the root gum, meaning to go. Slightly irregularly, you don't say gamati, but gachati. And I go is not gamami, but gachami. So there's this slight irregularity there. It's just the vowel, the consonant rather, final consonant of the root changing. So gachati, gachasi, and then I go, which we all know, of course, Buddhang saranang gacchami. You do get these irregularities from time to time. The good news is that once you've got the present stem, gaccha, gacchati, gacchasi, gacchami, it remains, there aren't any further irregularities after that throughout the whole of the present stem. That's the present optative, imperfect, imperative. Once you just get that one change, and that's your present stem, and that remains constant then throughout the conjugation of the present tense. There are a couple of peculiarities. There's the root sta, to stand. I'm giving you these roots in the Sanskrit form. In Pali, they say ta or ta. In Sanskrit, it is sta. That Sanskrit root sta means to stand, and it is no accident or no coincidence that the sta of our word stand is sta. In Latin, to stand is stare. I'm not writing the word stare, this is the Latin word stare, to stand, which of course gives us, for example, words like station. Statio in Latin is where you stand. Also gives us words like, in Latin, stabilis, standing firm, from which we get the English word stable. There is a subclass of verbs that reduplicate the initial consonant or part reduplicate the initial consonant. So from the root, I'll give it to you in Sanskrit first and then Pali. From the root sta, you'd expect to see something like statio, stayati. What happens? It's slightly irregular as a subclass. It becomes tishtati. So you see the sta there, but mutated slightly, and it's that form that gives us in Pali, he stands, he, she, it stands, titati. So I stand, titami, they stand, titanti. You also see the form ni, which means to lead. That makes its present stem in naya. So nayati, he, she, it leads. That is in fact a regular for formation by a standard vowel mutation. At another stage, fairly soon, I'll go into some detail over these vowel mutations. It's not as awful as it thinks. See, as it seems rather. There are several things in Sanskrit and Pali grammar where you get quite a bit of memory burden at an early stage. But once you've got those things at the early stage, then they're recurring constantly throughout your reading. So hopefully they will become well established. So nayati is, remember, that's a regular formation. And we get the word, for example, from the same root, we get nayaka, which means leader. It makes a verbal noun in naya, leading. You may recognize the word vinaya. The vinaya, which is the monastic discipline. I'll be explaining quite a bit about the force of these verbal prefixes as we go along. The verbal prefix vi, at the risk of boring two of you who have heard all about it this morning, the root vi is a very forceful and, sorry, not root, verbal prefix vi is a very powerful and forceful root, and we will be encountering it the entire time, and it's worth just making friends with it. In primitive Indo-European, we had the word dwa, alternatively dwe, dwe, meaning two, as in 1, 2, the numeral 2. And this has survived into Sanskrit in two forms, dwa and dwi. It has come through the Germanic line into the English word two, the twa, you see. We used to say två in Old English. In modern Swedish, they still do say två, and it's cognate with the German zwei. It's also cognate with the Latin duo and dual. Now, it came to be used as a verbal prefix, meaning two, as in splitting into two, a parting, a separating. But what happened was, in Sanskrit and Pali, when it had that meaning, the D dropped and it just became a V. So the dvi became a V. Now mark well, in Latin, and we have hundreds, maybe thousands of words in English, it became D or dis. As you know, in English, when you put D or dis in front of something, it often has the form of separation, negating, getting rid of something. So when you see these prefixes with an English verb or an English noun or verb via Latin, so when you see the vi, think immediately, that's the same meaning as when we put d or dis or die in front of an English word. Dissect, defenestrate, debug, de-emphasize. I mean, there are so many, almost any verb, you can put a D in front of it that kind of negates it. To depart, defunct, something has performed its function, is no longer functioning. Also to gresse, to step, to digress, to step away. I digress, I step away. The root vert, meaning in Latin to turn, we've got it in here, in Pali as well, the vrit in Sanskrit and Pali, to divert, to turn away. So you see the force of the dis and the d and the die in these verbs that have come into English, and it's very much the same force that the prefix vi has in Sanskrit and Pali. So vinaya, so from the root ni, to lead, naya means a leading, so vinaya means something that leads away. It leads you away. Or guides you away. So the vinaya, the monastic code of discipline, is that which guides you or leads you away from wrongdoing, or equally keeps wrongdoing away from you. But I think the more correct interpretation is probably that it leads people who follow the Vinaya, it keeps them, it leads them away from breaking the rules, from doing wrong. It's the Vinaya, leading away. Another area where it's seen, another word it's seen is vipassana. Well, I'm sure all of you know that word, but the actual meaning of the word is insight. The Sanskrit root pash, meaning to see. Now, look at this for a bit of entertaining etymology. There are a number of roots that either gain or lose an S, and pash is one of them. So the root, the earlier form of the root was spash. Now remember, Pali does not have a sh, so anything that's a sh in Sanskrit will turn up with a s in Pali. Now, spash. It very frequently happens that where you have a root in Sanskrit or Vedic that has a sh in it, it will often turn up in Latin, in Greek and Latin, or both, Greek or Latin or both, with a k sound. So this spash, meaning to look, turns up in Latin as spec. So spash and spec, as in inspect, respect, spectacle. It's that same spec root that is the spash in Pali. Sorry, the spash in Sanskrit. Now, look at this now. Seeing, or one of the words for seeing in Sanskrit is pashyana. That root pash with verbal noun yana, pashyana, seeing. Now put the V in front of it. It's like seeing into something, separating the veil, seeing beneath the surface, as it were, splitting open its cover and seeing inside it. That is why vipassana, there's pashyana, passana, seeing, with that prefix means insight. We can invent an English word via Latin. Let's invent an English word. You can inspect, you can respect, you can be circumspect. Let's invent the word dispect. After all, the root sec on its own means to cut. So dissection, cutting open. In medical terms, you can dissect a body. Not just cutting it to bits, but carefully cutting it open and seeing inside. If we invent this word, dispect, it's actually etymologically directly cognate with vipassana. Pity the word doesn't exist. Here's something really surprising. This word dispect, which doesn't exist, it's come into English with a totally different meaning. It's changed its form via French to despise. Well, if you despise something, what's the meaning of despise then? You can't look at it. You want to turn your gaze away from it. You want to unsee it. So that's how the word vipassana and despise are actually etymologically of the same origin. They've come with completely different meanings, but you can trace them back. One means seeing into something, vipassana, whereas despise, you hate somebody so much you can't even look at him. You want to unsee him, to unlook at that person. So this is my little digression, stepping aside on this prefix V. And you'll find as you go along that I'm actually going to concentrate quite heavily on the meaning of these prefixes, because if you allow them to get inside you, it will just give you so much insight into what these words meaning. So Vinaya, Vipassana. In the Karanyametta Sutta, you've got somebody's Vigata Midho. His Midho is just his sloth and torpor. It is Vigata, gone away. It means he's rid of it. So back to our verb table. Just look at the verbs. I'm looking at the table now, halfway down, just over on page 7. Labhami, labhasi, labhati. Those of you who know Latin, even French, will see this tick, or just in Latin ends in just in the letter T, as the as characteristic of the third person singular. You find it in this T ending. You'll find it in Latin, in many verbs in French, in the Slavonic languages. You find it. This is a direct. This is directly related to the T in Latin. In English, in Old English, let's take the verb to know. In modern English, he, she, it knows. In older English, he knoweth. That eth ending, the eth in Old English, is that same ending, that same characteristic T ending. And thou knowest. Here we see this characteristic S ending for the second person singular. The characteristic M in the first person singular, the I form, survives in English in just one verb alone. One verb remains in English that has this characteristic M, which is I am. So the M in I am, in Sanskrit and Pali, it is asmi. So we, in English, retains the first vowel and the second consonant. So the asmi in Sanskrit and Pali, in fact, in Pali, it's also amhi. But the am of I am is directly cognate with that verb. Oops. Let's see what it says here. Okay, so just below the table, you see lab is of a type referred to as an a stem verb. The majority of verbs are a stem verbs. You get the root plus an a. So I say the other classes of verb we will meet as we go along, but the great majority of verbs belong to this class. So before we go on to, I think let's do a little bit of text before we proceed with the grammar, any more grammar. So we'll just leave for the moment. We won't go to the postposed particles. So are there any questions arising out of what I've just said? Doesn't matter if there aren't, and if questions arise in your mind later, you can certainly raise them. Michael, please.
My question is about the long A in the
Yes.
person.
Yeah.
Where's that come from?
Okay. It is a feature of Vedic phonetics, by Vedic, even pre-classical Sanskrit. that it very often happens that with words that where the ending has a m or a v in it, Vedic just had a tendency to lengthen it. Why they did, it's too late to ask them, and even if you did ask them, they wouldn't know. They just did. It's just a feature that developed. Certainly, that it was a well-entrenched feature, even by the time of the Rig Veda, which goes back to 1800 BC. So getting at 3,800 years ago. And it was just there, well established in the language at that time. I'm afraid we can't say very much about it, apart from that they just did. On this point, by the way, it's not only in verbs and certain other words as well. We have the ending, a place name ending in vati, which is quite a common place name ending in Vedic and Sanskrit. So what happened was, and this is the same feature appearing here. So sukha, as we know, is happiness, and there's one place name which is the abode of happiness. It was the name of an ancient town. So Sukhavati, and because of this tendency in Vedic to lengthen an a before an ending beginning in a v or a m, it became Sukhavati. We have Amara, which is directly cognate with the Latin immor, as in immortal, Amara, undying. It's both a noun and it's both an adjective and an abstract noun. It means immortal and immortality as well. So the abode of the immortals, or the abode of immortality, and with the a lengthening before that v, not Amaravati, but Amaravati. Many of you, of course, will be familiar with Amaravati monastery in England. Never ever pronounce it Amaravati. Ugh, that's awful. So many people do. I mean, a lot of people do. It's I'm on a one-man campaign to stop people. So I mean, no Indian would ever say Amaravati. I mean, for example, Shalaka. You could never say Amaravati. You kind of instinctively know is Amaravati. Would I be right in saying that?
Yes, that's right. In fact, we have a city by that name as well in my home province. Amravati is a
Ah,
place.
okay, very good. So there you are. You have it as a place close to home. Can you pronounce that name slowly and clearly for us all, Shalaka?
Sure. It's Amaravati.
Amaravati.
Yeah.
We have Sukhavati. There are several others ending in a. If you split it up, it's a word ending in a short a plus vati, but the a lengthens. Okay, thank you for that, Shalaka.
Welcome.
My question is answered. Thank you.
Okay, is that so? I'm sorry I wasn't able to give a better answer, but hopefully we're just it is now firmly fixed in your mind. It just is. Notice now that let's look at the plural. The same phenomenon occurs with the m in the plural. So labhami means I obtain. Labhama, the me for the I and the ma for the we. Labhama, we obtain, we get. Second plural, labhata, and the third plural they with an anti, labhati singular, labhanti. And you find this throughout the language, wherever you get the singular form of the verb ending in the third person singular ending in t. You'll almost invariably find that you make the plural with an anti. One point I will mention here, the in Western grammars, and it's derived from the classical grammars, particularly Greek and Latin, we are used to talking about the first person is I, second person you, third person he, she, it, they. The Sanskrit grammarians did it the other way round. So, and equally the Pali grammarians do it the other way round. So, for example, in Sanskrit, when they say Pratama Purusha, literally first person, it means he, she, or it, or they. Second person is the same. And when a Sanskrit grammarian is talking about Tritiya Purusha, literally third person, it actually refers to I and we. So they reverse the numbering. But it's but in the way that I teach, and also in the way generally that Western grammars are put, just remember it follows the classical numbering derived from Latin and Greek. Incidentally, this root lab meaning to get, or to obtain, to receive, to get. It turns up in Latin as the root lab, labor, which in English, using the English spelling labor, because American uses the same OR spelling. So you're in Latin, labor, labor, is what you have to do in order to get something. So in Sanskrit and Pali, the lab root refers to, means the actual getting of it, whereas by an extension of meaning, in Latin, it came to mean the effort or work that you need to put into getting something. So lab and labor, labor, are ultimately from that same root. So any comments or queries before we go into a bit of text? So we'll do some text and then come back to the grammar. Yes, please, Shalika.
Yeah, I got a bit confused about Pratham Purushi Ekvachani. I think what I remember is Pratham Purush is I, not he, she, it.
So you're talking about the ekavachana, dvivachana.
No, Pratham Purush.
Okay.
I'm talking about Pratham Purush. So Pratham Purushi are related to I, right? And not he, she, it.
Okay. If you're reading or looking at a grammar written by a Sanskrit grammar, for example, written in India, and you see the phrase, you see the words Pratama Purusha, literally first person, that refers to he, she, it. That's simply the different numbering that was traditionally used in India.
So maybe in my mother tongue, Pratham Purush is still I.
Pratham
And
Purush.
yes,
So when you see the word Pratham Purush, do you take that to mean I?
yes.
Ah,
That's what I got quite confused. Yeah,
okay,
my
that's
mother tongue is Marathi.
okay. It does. Do you know that's very interesting? You should say that. If you go into a Sanskrit grammar,
Uh-huh.
Pratham Purush would mean actually he, she, or it. It's interesting that in modern Marathi grammars, they seem now to be following the Western style of numbering there. I hadn't heard that. That's very interesting, Shalaka.
Yeah.
So, so there could be even some confusion within India, depending if you're reading it. I don't know what they do and how they do it in Hindi grammars. Anyway, so we now know from Shalaka that in the Marathi grammar they follow the Western numbering rather than the traditional Sanskrit numbering. I just mention it so you don't get confused. Say, oi, that's not first person; it's third. It's just a different style. But yeah,
Okay.
thank you for that, Shalika. I hadn't known that actually. I'll just
Okay.
look this up and see if I can find out how they do it in Hindi. It would be interesting to know. Just making a note to follow this up. So we've got just a bit over 10 minutes before the break. So shall we move on to a bit of the reading? Oops. So in the previous lesson we did with the reading, we looked quickly at this first line, Chittam Bhikkhave Adantang Mahato Anathaya Samvattati iti. I'll just mention this Samvattati iti and explain that. The verb on its own, oops, is vrit, and in Sanskrit, vartate. Certain verbs in Sanskrit will, the atmanepada, it just will end in a te rather than a t. But in Pali, it's always a t. So vartate becomes vattati in Pali. It just means to proceed or to go. If you put a sum in front of it, that means it's conducive to, leads to. So samvattati results in, leads to. There's some prefix some is, again, it's a very, very common prefix. It is cognate with the Latin co or con, meaning with or gathering, and it's got a wide variety of meanings. It sometimes has the idea of a completion, rounding off. We use it in English without giving it a second thought. The Latin word for full, there are two words for full, but let's look at the second one. There's plenus that we know, plenary, plenus. The other word in Latin for full is pletus. So pletus just means full. And pletio, which would in English be pletion. We don't use the word pletion in English, but let's pretend we do. So pletion just means filling. Now let's put a com in front of it, completion. It's the idea of a rounding of the emphasizing of the ending, the accomplishment, the finality of something, the completion. This vrit, vartati, turns up in Latin as vert, turning, divert, revert, evert, convert. All of these diversion, all of these words contain within themselves the meaning of a turning. So to divert, to turn away, revert, turn back, to convert, to turn somebody so that you take him with you, you convert somebody to your religion, for example, or to a point of view. That same, or the same, etymologically the same word samvattati, which is etymologically the same as convert, in Sanskrit and Pali has the meaning of just to be conducive to something. Look at the word ducere in Latin, dux, to lead. To reduce means to lead back. To conduce means to lead along with you. Something is conducive to something else. It leads you along with it. That's that same meaning in samvattati. So chittam bhikkave dantam mahato anattaya samvattati. This anattaya, that's the dative ending, by the way, that you will see in the table halfway down page 5. That's this table halfway down page 5 is the one that you absolutely must learn so well that it just becomes part of you. And if you look at the dative, which is in the middle column halfway down, is the maya. That's that aya ending. So
Could you quickly remind me what the name of the document is that you're looking at, that Word document?
so you mean this document here?
Yeah, I see. G something lesson 1 text. Got it.
Oh, that's the you should have received that from me as part of the material that I sent out with the. Oh,
You did send it a long time ago, so I just got to look for it again. But thank you.
okay, right. What I think I will do, we'll probably get around to it within the next week or so, just to make sure that everybody has got everything, and at the risk of you having stuff duplicated, no problem, delete, is just to make sure that everybody's got everything, including some people who joined fairly late and may not have everything yet. Is just say, right here now in one composite package is everything that I want you to have in front of you or available to you as we're doing this. So yes, it's rather important that you should have these documents here. So this, what I've done here in this one, it's the same text as in the printed textbook, our Guarantilica textbook, but with my own analysis that I've made as a study aid. In the last few minutes before our break, and somebody please remind me to pause the recording when we go for the break, otherwise we've got 15 blank minutes on our recording. I am going to plunge into this very interesting query that Jen raised. Buddhang saranang gacchami. Right. Buddhang saranang gacchami. Typically translated as I go to the Buddha for refuge. As I've explained, saranang includes the idea of refuge, but a lot more besides. It's not the idea so much of running away from the fight as strengthening and arming yourself to go into the fight. I think I quoted St. Paul to the Ephesians, the sword of the Spirit. Now, I've explained that the verb gam, it's a verb of motion. So typically, the motion towards something will take the accusative. So I'm going to town. Nagara is a town. Nagarang gacchami. I'm going to town. Viharang gacchami. I'm going to the vihara. Amaravating gacchasi. You're going to Amaravati. Amaravating gacchasi. So far, so good. Buddhang gacchami would therefore mean I go to the Buddha. Now, Jen was saying, well, Buddhang gacchami saranaya. Buddhang saranaya gacchami. Why isn't it that? Okay, two things occurred to me. Firstly, if you said Buddhang saranaya gacchami, Jen, you would be right, because you could say that in Pali. I go to the Buddha for the purpose of refuge. So that would be the dative of purpose. Just as, for example, the Buddha taught, for the happiness and benefit of mankind, happiness, sukha, hita, benefit, sukhaya, sukhaya, hitaya, he taught for that purpose. So in fact, Jen is right there. That is a valid alternative. Why is it Buddhang saranang gacchami? Going to refuge, going for the purpose of refuge. In fact, what has happened is that saranang plus root gam has almost become a fixed expression. Saranang gacchati, taking refuge in, going for refuge to. It's become just a fixed expression, accusative plus gacchati. So you can almost treat saranang gacchami, saranang gacchati, almost as a compound verb. And with that compound verb, then, the thing that you're going to refuge to will take the accusative. So we say dhammang saranang gacchami. So I think that is probably the best explanation of it. If I think of a better one, I will give it to you. I'm actually quite pleased that I delayed this explanation of Jen's query, because it was only as I was thinking, well, that's how it is, let's explain it. Then it was dawned on me, Jen is right. It could be that. And if you said, if I saw Buddhang Saranaya Gacchami, it wouldn't surprise, it's not how we say it, as we know, but it wouldn't surprise me to see it. It would still be good Sanskrit and good Pali. The fact is, just Saranang Gacchati has become, so to speak, a fixed expression that takes an accusative object of. In English, we just because by the rules of English grammar, we have to say to the Buddha, but by the rules of Sanskrit and Pali grammar, that object is in the accusative as the object of or destination of a verb of motion. So we've just gone 8. So what we can do now, we will take our 15-minute comfort break, and I will see you at 8:15 UK time. What have you got to remind me to do?
Recording off.
What do you? Sorry.
Don't forget to turn the recording off.
Thank you. I will pause the recording so it's just one continuous thing when I'm. So okay, I'm pausing recording now, and I'll see you in exactly 15 minutes time. Thank you. Thanks. Okay, there we are. Recording resumed. And I will. And can you? I think I've. Can you see the shared screen with my iPad? Okay, good, fine. Now you see the analysis. So this adantam. Who is going to volunteer to give us a breakdown, a real meaning of the how we what this word adantam is? Would you like me to explain what adantam is? Okay, I will then. Up comes the iPad. Looking at this word adantam or adantang.
James, is that the accusative singular of untamed?
It's the nominative singular, but because it's a neuter, but you're right, because it's a neuter noun. The chittang is a neuter noun, and therefore the nominative and the accusative are identical in form. So if you wanted to have chittang adantang, if you just look at it on its own, you wouldn't know whether it's nominative or accusative. That would depend on its function in the sentence. So it's from the root dam, meaning to tame, and it is directly cognate with our English verb to tame. It's the same word. It's actually also from the same origin as the Latin word domus, which we know means a house. We have domestic, for example, a domesticated animal is, and we have your domestic arrangements, meaning your home. The domus, which is the Latin word for a house or home, originally meant in more ancient times the tamed area. Remember when you lived in a wild and dangerous world, looking back 2000 and more years ago, a wild and dangerous world. So the domus was the tamed area, the safe space that you could keep guarded, and you would allow into it animals that you had tamed. So a domesticated animal. So domus, domestic, and our English word tame, and the Sanskrit root dam are all indeed the same word. So just as in English, we tend to make a past participle by adding ed, or if the word already ends in an e, you've just added e, so tame and tamed. So in Sanskrit and Pali, you add just a ta, with exactly that same meaning. Buddha, awakened, dam. So we have dam plus ta, again, just by normal phonetic mutation. If you get a m before a t, it just automatically mutates to an n. So it's difficult to say damta. So we more automatically say danta. So that's how you get danta, meaning tamed. The negating prefix a is exactly the same as the Greek negating prefix a, which is very commonly used in English, words that have come into English via Greek as well. So from the Greek root tom means to cut. Greek atomos, from which we have the English atom, means the uncuttable, unsplittable. You can be political or apolitical, non-political. You can be amoral, just without morals. The Greek word gnosis, meaning knowledge. If you are agnostic, you're saying I neither believe nor disbelieve. I'm agnostic. without knowledge, I do not know. In Greek, exactly the same as in Sanskrit and Pali, if the word that you're negating begins with a vowel, the a becomes an. So, for example, the Greek word orexi means appetite. And if you are anorexic, means you have no appetite. You don't want to. Don't want to eat. Aerobic. That's something that puts air into you and oxygenates. And anaerobic, non-oxygenating. So we're here seeing it here now. Danta, adanta, untamed. And it's a neuter noun. The chittang is a neuter noun. So we just put our neuter singular ending, same nominative and accusative, adantang, untamed. So chittang bhikkhave adantang, the mind, O monks, untamed, meaning when untamed, in a state of being untamed. Mahato anataya samvattati, leads to great harm. This word ta is anyone here able to explain atta? Okay, so I think I did an explanation of it in the previous class where you weren't here, where it was the different group. It's actually from a root ri, and that ri is, we write it with a r with a dot under it. It's actually a vowel in Sanskrit. And it means one of the several verbs meaning to go. And when you put the verb ending ta at the end, the r becomes ar. I'll explain that in due course. So arta means literally a going, therefore destination, where you're going to. So in Sanskrit, arta, and by regular phonetic mutation in Pali, we see atta, artha, ta in Pali. So it's your goal or your destination, and by extension, that which you seek. Therefore, something that's valuable or good. This root, meaning to go, another way of making a verbal noun in Sanskrit is to put a tu. So ritu means a going, and it means a season, and also a ceremony that is performed to mark moments or points in life. The ritu. Do you spot something here? The word ritual has come into English via Latin. It's that same ritu. It's this from this old root meaning going, and what you do to mark the going, the passing of the seasons, the rituals. You have a ritual. In ancient times, you had the rituals of the solstice, the rituals of the new year. They were connected with frequently with the solar year, and you had rituals. The start of the ploughing, the harvesting. It's the time, the goings of the year. So the ritu in Sanskrit, in Pali, utu, often means a season, as in a season of the year, the particular time of the year. You can mark the time of the year. So just entertainingly, this little root Here we have it in English, ritual. So ritu, artha are just two nouns formed from that same root. Incidentally, what known as an extended root, sometimes you get a root with extra vowels added on. Our English word run come from that same root. So that explains the atta. Now, here we have the negated atta, negated with atta, but because atta begins with a vowel, the a is an, so anatta, that which is not desirable, that which is not good. And then it also means something that is positively harmful. So mahato anattaya samvattati, it leads to great harm. And equally, in the second line, you see the same thing said, but without the negation. Siddhantam and Mahato Attaya. Chittam bhikkhave dantam, the mind, O monks, the chitta, O monks, when tamed, or when in a state of being tamed, the mind, O monks, tamed, Mahato Attaya samvattati. Similarly, in the second pair of lines, that's the third and fourth lines, Chittam bhikkhave aguttam mahato anattaya samvattati. I'll explain why it's samvattatiti in a moment. And the paired line with it, Chittam bhikkhave guttam mahato attaya samvattati, the mind amongst when protected, leads to great benefit. There's some root gup. It makes, with its past participle that we've just been describing, gup plus ta becomes in Sanskrit gupta. And almost invariably, where you get a word with a p and t in Sanskrit, it just becomes a double t in Pali, which is how Gupta in Sanskrit becomes Gutta in Pali. Gup actually is quite an interesting root. It's one of the very, very rare roots that is not a genuine root. It's actually a root composed up of two different elements. I told you earlier that a root is the irreducible minimum of a verb. It cannot be broken down any further. There could be one or two other exceptions, but gup is the best known exception to this. It's not a real Indo-European root, and I'm going to explain. It comes from two separate words. Go, go and pa, both of which exist in English as very common words in English. You might not recognize them immediately, but it doesn't take long to recognize them because go we have in modern English as a cow. It's the animal, a cow, go, cow. It's the same word. And the root a means to protect. And the Latin comes into Latin also, the pater, which is in English we have as father. That is it is the protector. We have it also, the pastor. In modern English, it tends to be used as, somebody in charge of a church or something like the pastor of a church. The old meaning is somebody who protects the animals in the pasture. So the pastor of the sheep or the pastor of the cows will be the protector of the cows. So what happened was you put these two words together to go. Notice that's a short there. I'll explain that separately. So gopa is actually a combination of two separate words, go and pa, making gopa, one who looks after the cows, a cow protector. What then happened, and this had happened already by early Vedic times, already you see happened at the time of the Rig Veda, gopa, on the face of it, looks as if it came from a root gu. In fact, it didn't. But the root gup was, so to speak, even by Vedic times and recognized by the grammarian Panini as well, had become a recognized root, even though it's not a genuine root. But we can now treat it as a root. So this gup, we can now treat it as a root, meaning to protect. It's lost the meaning of cows, and it just means protector, generally. And there's a separate ending ta, which means the doer of something. In fact, it's a surname, a family name that you find quite frequently in India. The Gupta, it's quite a common surname. I see Shalaka, thank you, nodding assent. It's a common surname in India. It's the protector of something. So there we are, looking at this word Guptam. If you were new to Pali, who would have thought that it comes from two words that we have in English as cow and pasture, or paternal, the protection. So I'll be looking after somebody's dog here. I think she wants to walk soon. So Chittam Bhikkhave Aguttam, the mind, O monks, the chitta, O monks, unprotected, Mahato Anataya Samvattati, is conducive or leads to great anatta, to great harm. And the same the other way around, Chittam Bhikkhave Guttam Mahato Attaya Samvattati. Now, the next pair, these words Guttam, Rakitam, Samvatam, they're from different roots and with different shades of meaning, but they're all broadly the same meaning: guarded, protected. So arakitam, that is from the root raksh, Sanskrit raksh, to protect, rakshati, which in Pali, again, very frequently, when you see a ksha in Sanskrit, ksha, you will find that's a k, double kh in Pali. Not always, but most commonly. Rakshati, rakkati in Pali. And also can have the verbal prefix araksh. Araksh meaning to protect. In Greek, araksh turns up as Alex. Alex means a protector. Alexander, the word Alexander in Greek means the protector of men, one who protects people. Alexander. So the lex in Greek there is directly cognate with the raksh of Sanskrit, the rak of Pali, the protector. Just make a note, that's Greek. Now, we've just been discussing this past participle. You add a ta. Very often, you get an I inserted. mostly for euphonic per. It's difficult to say rakshita, so you say rakshita. And the same then in Pali, rakita. And we see that same verb with the prefix anu in it in the Karaniya Metta Sutta. Mata yata nyamputamnya ayusa rakhe and anurakhe. So that same is in the Metta Sutta. We're currently dealing in the parallel series of classes. So the chittam bhikkhave rakitam, the mind, O monks, when unguarded, mahato anataya samvattati. And the
James, can you talk
yes,
a little bit about the difference between protected and guarded? Right. So there's got to be some sort of meaning difference happening there because they're both there's one, right, there's the pair where it's talking about protected and then there's
yeah,
another pair where it's talking about guarded.
okay,
And those seem very similar to me.
they do. Now you might want to say, well, what's the difference in English between protected and guarded? Is there a difference in English between protected and guarded? There's maybe a subtle difference of usage. Now, if you look back to the etymology of those words, to protect, a tectum in Latin means a covering. So to protect means you place a covering or a protective cover. You protect something by putting the cover on it. We have it in the word to detect something means you lift the lid off it, you uncover it. You protect by placing a cover over it to stop harm reaching it. The word guard, by the way, is more from the word to ward, as in ward and guard are the same word, guardian, warden are the same word. That is more protect in the same way of keeping danger out. So protect has more, if you look back into the etymology of the English words via Latin and the German, to protect, to put a protective covering to stop harm reaching it. To guard is more warding something off. So there's that subtle meaning there. And there is the similar subtle difference there. The rakitam, the raksh root, is a general word meaning to protect or to guard. And the king's guards would be the rakita of the king. Gopa, because of its etymology within Sanskrit, has more the idea, as I was saying, the gopa, the protecting, the guarding of your animals, of keeping animals safe. The rakita is more like a forceful guarding. And I'm glad you asked that because when we come to samvutta, broadly the same meaning. Chittam bhikkhave asamvuttam. Now, we have the root vri, which means broadly means to cover, but you can cover in a protective way. That root vri, meaning covering or protecting, sometimes it means blocking as well, but it turns up in English as the very word we were talking about, warding and guarding. It's that same root. A weir in a river, it's the block in a river that slows the flow of the water, so the water flows over the weir. It slows down the rapid flow of the water. The w and the g have often got confused in the Germanic languages, even in Latin. So warden and guardian are the same word. Incidentally, our word garden is the protected area around your house. Originally, the garden was the guarded area, the area that you keep your domestic animals safe inside. Not a modern garden with your pretty flowers growing there. In the old days, it meant a protected area. So, with the prefix some, like guarded around, samvrita, co-guarded, con-guarded, con-warded, samvrita. The idea of you're warding off danger. Samvrita in Sanskrit becomes, because the r doesn't exist in Pali, you have to put another vowel instead, so you get samvrita, which is exactly what we find in this verse. Chittam bhikkhave asamvutam mahato anataya samvattati. So here, thank you, Jen, for raising that point. So you've got three words with broadly the same meaning, but each one having a slightly different tone. The first one is protecting, as in the way you look after your animals. The second one is like guarding, if necessary, guarding with force, fighting off danger. And samvuta, you put your blockage, like your garden, to keep danger out. So they aren't synonyms. They all bear the same kind of meaning. They're not exact synonyms. Each word has a different tone. Just as I've been explaining, protect and guard have different origin. If you understand the origins of the words, then you see the different tone, the slightly different feeling that they have in modern English. So, before we move on to the next phase, are there any any queries or comments arising out of that? Those of you who were with me for the classes I've been doing for some years for the Buddhist Society, the Sanskrit and Pali, will know that when the numbers were low enough, as they are now, I'd always get people to recite a little bit, just a line or two. But we also had the rule that nobody was ever compelled to recite if they didn't want to. There was a convention that was used. If you didn't, the convention we used back in those days is that if I can see your face on my screen, that is a signal to me that you don't mind being called upon to recite something. If you don't feel like it, you're allowed to turn your video off. Maybe we won't be so formal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask one of you to recite the first line of this, the Chittam Bhikkhave Adantam Mahato Anataya Samvattati.
James, it's Duncan.
Duncan.
Just before, I don't want to recite, but just a question.
It would have been so good to hear it coming out in a Scottish accent, Duncan.
You mentioned that adantam and these other words were past participles.
Yes, they are. They all are, that's correct.
Yeah, I kind of thought they were adjectives. Could you just maybe explain that a little bit?
A past participle is an adjective, but it's a particular kind of adjective. So you're right, they are adjectives. It's an adjective meaning that something has been done to it. So, for example, protected. Okay, let's be protected in the sense of a past participle. You can talk about the protected mind. So past participle, but an adjective. What kind of mind? The protected mind. You can talk about a done deed. A deed that has been done is a done deed. There is the past participle used as an adjective. So all of these participles they are adjectives, but a particular category of adjectives. They're adjectives formed from verbs, meaning either that if it's an active participle, it means they are doing something. A past participle means, it mostly means something has been done to it or is being done to it. Just as, the tamed mind, the mind that has been tamed, the past participle, but same in English as in Sanskrit and Pali. Past participle used as an adjective. In fact, in Sanskrit and Pali, the participles are always nouns and adjectives, but formed directly from a verb.
Okay, that's great. So one of the complications, one doesn't know one's own grammar, far less Pali.
It helps to know your own grammar.
Thank you.
And also in the remote past, when I was a child, I was brought up as a Roman Catholic. And looking back, without wishing to be too mean on anybody, I would say the only distinct advantage that I can point to being brought up as a Roman Catholic was that I got a lot of Latin from an early age. So it's that kind of grammatical background that actually does come in pretty handy when you're looking at a language of the same language family, like Sanskrit and Pali.
I actually have one more question.
Yeah, please keep them coming, Michael. Carry on.
In all the lines, I see it's samvatati D, and do people recite it with that last T on there? And also there's the hat
Okay.
on
Let's
top of the I.
okay. Let me. Sorry, I said I promised to explain. Now I will. Now I will explain. Let me just. Oops. So, wires all over the place. Here we are. Oh, sorry, I filled up the wrong thing now. Where's it gone? Where's it gone? I've lost the sheet. Come on, must be here. Here we are. Sorry. That's the problem with having several screens, several pages open at the same time on my bank of three screens. Okay, samvattatiti. It's actually very simple. The verb itself, on its own, samvattati, and that's that same ati ending that we've just seen, the third person singular ending, samvattati.
James, are you writing on your iPad?
Sorry, I am. Thank you. So what I'm about to explain is that samvattatiti, this one here. So thank you for reminding me, writing on the iPad. So samvattati, on its own, samvattati. Now, the ending wasn't ending, it's the particle, little word ti, is the same as unquote, end of quote. In Sanskrit, it is iti, the full form is iti, meaning thus. But when you are quoting what somebody has said, if you're writing it in English, you put it in quotation marks. In Sanskrit and Pali, they don't have quotation marks, and you don't open quote, but you put iti or ti, meaning close quote. That means the end of what I'm quoting. And you sometimes see, very frequently see, at the end of a sutta or at the end of a verse, just ti. And that is the signal. It's not part of what was originally said. It's like a word representing close quote. If you look at the Metta Sutta, the very close of the Metta Sutta ends in a T. It's a signal, meaning this is the end of what was said, the end of this scriptural quote. It is a feature of the language that whenever you put this ending T, sorry, not the ending, this close quote marker, T, the vowel before it is always lengthened. So samvat, if you on its own say samvattati. If you want to put T at the end, it's not samvattatiti, but samvattatiti. If I had been the author of this book, I would have omitted the T at the end and just put samvattati, just so as not to confuse people. So it doesn't alter the meaning, it's just a close quote marker. I'm not quite sure why it's here in repeated in every single line. It's a little bit unusual. So for these purposes, you can just ignore it.
I have a follow-up question, which is why isn't that long I marked with a long mark, like other long vowels?
Well spotted. Well spotted. If it is written in any of the native scripts, in Devanagari or Sinhala or Burmese or Thai, any of the scripts, the Eastern scripts in which Pali is written, it would not be distinguished. It would just simply be the long E, however that might be written. Since in the Devanagari script would just be the E and the T. Oops. Oh, sorry, my pen's gone funny. Pen. Oh, occasionally my pen stops working. Let's hope it starts working. Let's see if it does. Yes, it does. So T. But TT, and if you just write T on its own in Devanagari, it is T like that. TT, it's the same T is used. Why is it this circumflex mark rather than the stroke? Why is it written? Your question is, why is it written like that, like this one, rather than the second one? Is that your question? Okay, right. This is a device invented possibly by people like Monia Williams, the writer of the great Sanskrit dictionary, professor of Sanskrit in Oxford in the latter part of the 1800s. It's a device to assist students. It's a device that means that it's the merger of two vowels into one. So the circumflex is used. We will not find the equivalent in the native scripts. You do not find the equivalent in the Devanagari script, just as an aid to students. Say, it's not just a vowel that's long on its own, it's because the merger of two vowels. So samvattati iti becomes samvattatiti. So it's just
That makes perfect sense. I imagine there are some places where you could abuse that circumflex for very weird
that's it. So the accent was hanging around, unused, available. So these clever people like Monia Williams and Oxford said, let us use it as an aid to students, as an indicator. We'll see a few of these as we go along. But there's nothing more sinister than that. It's just the merger of two vowels. So, for example, you'll see it actually in the very next line. You'll see naham. You see the very next line, naham. Sorry, let me call it up here. See here? You've got that circumflex over the naham. That is a signal to the student that this is by Sandhi a merger of na plus aham. Na aham, the two vowels by Sandhi just merge into one to naham. And that is why, so the a plus a to ah, but as an aid to students, it was just written as with a circumflex. Now, for example, in the Devanagari, na aham then becomes naham. The Devanagari does not have that sign. This stroke, this vertical bar here just means is the wrong ah. Devanagari does not have this helpful sign that it's a merger of two vowels. You find it exclusively when the Latin script is being used to represent the sounds of Sanskrit and Pali. Anyway, well spotted. You've got a good eye for detail there, Michael.
Thanks.
Jay, have you any objection just to reciting that first line? The one beginning this one here. In fact, let's drop out this confusing et at the end.
Yeah. I'm a bit echoey.
Yeah, it is sounding a little bit echoey, but anyway, try anyway.
Let me try to sort that out. Sitam.
Sorry, so chittam.
Can you help me?
Remember, in Pali and Sanskrit, when you see a doubled consonant, it's the same as Italian. Those of you who know Italian, it's important to pronounce it double. So chittam.
Sitam Bikavi.
Chittam bhikkhave. Again, you've got to hold the ka. Bhikkhave.
Adantam Maho. Oh, maybe you should ask someone else.
Say Mahato Anataya.
Mahatu Anataya. Bhattiya.
Samvattati.
That was just from reading it.
Okay. Don't worry, Jai. We will get you there. We will get you there. Okay. Michael, do you feel inclined to I'm just choosing you because you're the next frame along, the next screen along on my screen.
I love inflicting the sound of my own voice on other people, so my pleasure. Okay, line 2. Chittam bhikkhave dantam mahato attaya samvattati.
That was a very creditable performance indeed, and in particular, sometimes people pronounce it in different ways, and if your accent is not quite, well, how is it exactly pronounced? We don't quite know. But what is vital to get right is doubled consonants and the long and the short vowels, because they can make, it can mean a different word if you don't do it. For example, the word let me give you one example. Bala, with a short two short bala, and bala. These are two entirely separate words. Bala means strength. Bala means something like originally it meant a child, then by extension it meant a fool. But anyway, you got meticulously correctly all the doubled consonants and the longs and the shorts. And another thing, remember, is these aspirated vowels, the ones with an H after. They do make an important difference in Sanskrit and Pali. And in the languages of modern India as well, it's an entirely, to the Indian ear, the sounds ba and ba are two completely different sounds. And da are two completely different sounds, and so on. And for example, we have the word atta, Sanskrit in Pali becomes atta, is to the Indian ear a completely different sound from atta, which is aspirated atta and atta. So Shalaka will know exactly what I'm talking about if you're a native speaker of. I think it's the same in Gujarati. In Marathi as in Hindi. You've got the difference in da ta da da. Is that right? Okay,
Yes,
fine.
they are quite
Yeah.
different. Yeah.
Yeah, and so for the a native English speaker, it's always just an H thrown in. That doesn't matter. For the native Indian speakers, of all of the languages of northern India, that applies, that's the ones that descend directly from Sanskrit and the Prakrits, including Marathi, Gujarati, Hindi, Bengali, Nepali. These are all one close family of languages that descend directly from Sanskrit. The difference between the aspirates and the non-aspirates, that's with the slight h sound after, they are completely different sounds. It's the voiced aspirates, the ba, da, ga, that are a bit difficult for native English speakers to get. We tend to say pa instead of a ba. And one thing you will notice is that the Thais can't do it either. The Thais find it impossible to say bhikkhu. If you hear a Thai pronounce it, you'll say bhikkhu with a p. It's because of the phonetics of Thai, they can't do a b sound. And it's a bit difficult for native English speakers to do as well. But fear not, the Thais have the same problem. That's why when the Thais say pronounce Buddha, they'll pronounce as Buddha, Buddha. And when the Thais pronounce Dhamma, they say Dhamma. See, they can't do the sound. So look, we'd better wind up there. I've got this poor little doggy desperate to get out that I'm looking, and we've just gone 9. So I'll just make a note that if not everyone gets a chance to recite, fear not. I make a note of who's done it, and the others get their turn next time round. Okay, so I will say goodbye then. Thank you very much for being with me, and see you all in a week's time. Thank you for joining me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you so
Bye.
much. Bye.
Goodbye.
Thank
Bye to all. Bye.
Cheers.